Rude customers mock elderly woman at cafe, shocked to learn she's Keanu Reeves' mother. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from. Airports bustling with travelers on their way to far-off destinations are rarely places where something extraordinary happens. People rush through security, race to catch their flights, and scurry to their gates, all while navigating the usual stresses that come with air travel. It's easy to get lost in the whirlwind of schedules, boarding calls, and the incessant ticking of clocks. But sometimes, amid the frenzy, a moment of kindness can shine through, turning an ordinary day into something unforgettable. This is a story about one such moment, a moment that happened in the most unexpected of places, between a young flight attendant and an unassuming passenger. The passenger wasn't just any traveler. He was a man who had built a career on portraying characters who were larger than life. But off-screen, he was a person who carried himself with humility and grace. Keanu Reeves. What follows is a story of a small mistake that could have gone unnoticed, yet became a turning point in a young woman's life. It's about the power of kindness, the way it can change a person's perspective, and how sometimes a simple gesture can have a lasting impact. In a world that often feels hurried and disconnected, this story serves as a reminder that kindness, no matter how small, can always be a ticket to something more. A ticket to kindness. It was a chilly Thursday morning at the Los Angeles International Airport, and the terminal was alive with the usual buzz. Travelers hurried through the gates, wheeling suitcases behind them, and glancing at their watches, hoping they wouldn't miss their flights. Among the crowd, one person stood out, though not because of his fame, but because he moved through the airport quietly, unnoticed by most. Keanu Reeves, famous for his roles in The Matrix, and John Wick was preparing for yet another cross-country flight. He had learned over the years to blend in with the crowd, knowing that his fame could attract unwanted attention. He wasn't there for the glitz or the glam, and he certainly wasn't there for the attention. In fact, he often preferred the anonymity of being a regular passenger. Keanu was accustomed to the normal airport procedures, checking in, going through security, grabbing a coffee before the flight. But today he was met with an unexpected turn of events. The flight attendant, an eager young woman named Rachel, was working her first shift on the early morning flight. She had been nervous all week about the big day, but she was excited for the opportunity to take on the role. Her mind was racing with procedures and steps she needed to follow, checking boarding passes, making sure everyone was seated, and managing the delicate balance of customer service. As she walked down the aisle, clipboard in hand, she greeted the passengers warmly, her eyes scanning the tickets to make sure everything was in order. As she approached Keanu's seat, she paused for a moment. He was sitting by the window, wearing a simple black hoodie, sunglasses perched atop his head, and a beanie covering his hair. He was scribbling something on a small notepad, completely absorbed in his thoughts. Rachel, though, was focused on the task at hand. She didn't notice the familiar face before her, nor did she recognize the man who had just stepped into her life with such an unexpected act of kindness. "Ticket, please," Rachel said as politely as she could. Keanu looked up, a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. He didn't say much but handed over his boarding pass, which she examined carefully, the excitement of her first solo shift still apparent in her movements. She didn't linger long over the ticket. She just glanced at it and went to stamp it. But as her hand moved too quickly, the ticket accidentally got caught in the rubber stamp and tore in half. Rachel's heart sank. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed, her hands trembling slightly. She quickly attempted to piece the ticket together, trying to make it whole again, but the damage was done. The paper was jagged, and she knew she would have to get a replacement. Keanu watched her for a moment, his gaze steady and kind. "It's all right. No harm done," he said in his soft-spoken manner, his voice a calming presence in the bustling cabin. He didn't seem upset in the least, and he didn't make a big deal of the incident. Rachel, however, was mortified. "No, really, I'll get you a new one," she insisted, looking around for a supervisor or someone who could help with the situation. But before she could move, Keanu placed a hand on her arm gently. "Don't worry about it," he said with a warm, understanding smile. "It's just a ticket, right? I'm not in a hurry. Everything's fine." Rachel's face flushed with embarrassment, but Keanu's gentle reassurance calmed her nerves. She hesitated for a moment, but then decided to let the matter go, trusting that it would all be fine. She thanked him for his patience and moved on to check the other passengers. As the flight continued, Rachel kept herself busy, making sure everyone was comfortable. But she couldn't help but notice how Keanu remained calm, quietly reading his book, taking in the views from the window, and occasionally glancing up to offer a kind smile to the crew as they passed by. His unassuming presence made her feel at ease, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just witnessed a rare moment of grace. By the time the flight began its descent into New York, Rachel had all but forgotten the incident. She was focused on getting passengers prepared for landing when, just before they reached the gate, Keanu stood up and made his way to the front of the cabin. "Hey!" he called out to Rachel, who was in the galley preparing for the final service of the flight. She looked up in surprise. He had a small smile on his face, and in his hand, he held something that caught her attention. "Here," he said, handing her a folded envelope. "It's for you. I hope you don't mind." Rachel blinked, unsure what was happening. "What is it?" she asked, taking the envelope from his hand. It was light, almost as if it held something much more valuable than just paper. "You've got a great future ahead of you," Keanu said, his voice as calm as ever. "I've been watching you work today, and I can tell you've got a lot of heart. Keep that with you." With that, Keanu turned and walked toward the door, disappearing into the crowd of passengers. Rachel stood frozen for a moment, the envelope in her hands trembling slightly. She opened it, finding not only a small note but a plane ticket. First class, of course. The note read, "For a journey of your own, when you're ready. Keep your heart open and never forget the kindness that can bloom even in the smallest moments." Rachel felt a lump form in her throat. She glanced around, but Keanu had already left the gate, blending in with the sea of passengers disembarking from the plane. It had all happened so fast, but the effect of his kindness lingered long after he was gone. As she stood there holding the envelope, a sense of warmth spread through her. It wasn't about the money or the ticket. It was about the gesture itself. Keanu had reminded her of something simple yet profound. That kindness, in its purest form, was free to give and often carried more weight than anything else. He hadn't just gifted her something tangible. He had given her a renewed sense of faith in humanity. Rachel carried that note with her through the years that followed. She worked hard in her career, moving up through the ranks of the airline industry. Her journey took her to new destinations, new faces, and new challenges. But no matter where she went, she always remembered that day. The day a quiet, unassuming man had changed the course of her life. Not through grand gestures, but through a simple act of kindness. And for years, she carried Keanu's words with her, knowing that sometimes the most meaningful connections came when you least expected them, in the moments where you needed them most. If you've ever experienced a moment of kindness that changed your day, share it with us in the comments below. Let's spread the positivity and remind each other that even the smallest gestures can make a huge difference. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more heartwarming stories that inspire kindness in everyday life. Let's keep the good vibes going together.